Carson Wentz is tripped up, diving forward. He has now given himself up. From behind, Clowney now comes in to drive him into the ground. Whether or not there was helmet contact, whether or not it was what knocked Carson Wentz out of the game, it was still a late hit based on the NFL rules that have been established. And again, by not giving him a fine, by not calling a penalty, the NFL has continued this problematic throughout the season of having no consistency with the rules and no consistency with the refs that are out there.
Welcome to the ChadBurn Show, brought to you by M. Chad Baldwin.
Welcome to the ChadBurn Show. I am your host, M. ChadBurn, and as always, running behind the scenes is the one and only Julien Renvoise. Say hello to the people, Julien. Yes, folks, we are back. We are back from the holiday season. It has been long. It's been about over 2-week hiatus. We did not put any new episodes out since then, but we are here with a vengeance, ready to talk some sports, ready to talk NFL playoffs, the demise of the Eagles. We have a special guest on as an interview to start off this year right, and we'll be finishing off with a send-off to the Eagles season and some playoff predictions. So we have plenty of content for you today. We have to make up for when we were gone, but I want to thank you all for sticking with us and coming back and listening to our show in the new 2020. I hope everyone had a wonderful holiday season, that you had time to, relax, get your energy back, see some family, eat some good food and drink, and of course, get those wonderful gifts if it was your time to pick up some good gifts. Now we are into a new year. Let's say goodbye to 2019 and all the wonderful adventures we had then, and really look forward to making this a stellar and incredible year. So I want to thank you for that, and let's get started, right? As always, you're welcome to ChadBurn Show. We do this in the one-take format. We are going to go through the Eagles playoff game last week. We have an interview with PS. It's all about sports. And then we'll finish off with some fun topics around the NFL playoff and our predictions at the end of the show. So without further ado, it is clear that we need to talk some Eagles football and what transpired last weekend. And of course, what we saw was the end of the Eagles season. A 17-9 loss to the Seattle Seahawks that happened in probably the most tragic fashion we could imagine. Carson Wentz going out after 9 minutes of playing to a concussion that, in my opinion, was caused by a player who hit him illegally late. And many people will complain that I am being biased Eagles fan, and maybe I am, but it looked like a dirty hit to me. I've watched this clip a million times, the hit on Jadeveon Clowney on Carson Wentz, and needless to say, I think it should warrant a fine. Now, we have found out from Adam Schefter, I believe it was today, that the league will not be fining Jadeveon Clowney for a late hit, which I think is ridiculous. But let's go through it a little bit. Through this season, the NFL has tried to lay out a format that would protect the quarterbacks, that if they give up their position, they are now considered down. We saw in week 2 when Carson Wentz dove into the end zone to try and score a touchdown for the Eagles, that when he left his feet and dove forward, the second he dove forward, they marked him down. They didn't count as continuing. They said that the second he gave his body, he was down. There's no longer this differentiation between sliding with your feet first or diving head first. The second the quarterback starts moving down, they have now given themselves up and are no longer allowed to be hit. Carson Wentz is tripped up, diving forward. He has now given himself up. From behind, Clowney now comes in to drive him into the ground. Whether or not there was helmet contact, whether or not it was what knocked Carson Wentz out of the game, it was still a late hit based on the NFL rules that have been established. And again, by not giving him a fine, by not calling a penalty, the NFL has continued this problematic throughout the season of having no consistency with the rules and no consistency with the refs that are out there. It's getting to a point of ridiculousness. We have now the pass interference rule that can be reviewed. We have all these new rules to protect the quarterback, yet every game we see a new interpretation of these rules. The NFL has to figure this out, because if they're not going to have a single thought on all these rules, if they're not going to be able to train their refs to recognize the same thing every year, then what is the freaking point? Why have these rules in the first place? If it's just going to be up to interpretation for the refs and not be a standard and guideline to how it should be run, then what's the point? I'm getting tired of every week of it always being, well, one team got hosed by the refs. Well, this team could have won, but then the refs. It's ridiculous. Now, the refs couldn't save Carson Wentz coming back in the game, but at least there could have been some justice for the critical hit he took. Carson Wentz was nailed in the back of the head after giving himself up, going down, and was then slammed to the ground from that. Now, I get it. I'm not here to say Jadeveon Clowney purposely, intentionally tried to knock Carson Wentz out of the game. I think he was trying to get a hit on Wentz to, as most defenders do, to try and send a message that, hey, you're going to run, you're going to get hit. But unfortunately, I think Clowney did lead with his shoulder first, but the way he went downward and the angle of which he went led it that it was possible for him to make a head-to-head contact, helmet to helmet, with Carson Wentz. And unfortunately knocked him out. So I think at the least it's a late hit. But again, this league is completely inconsistent with how these rules are run. They're completely inconsistent in how they're showing and how they're going to call the game each and every week, no matter who's out there on the field. So really, am I shocked that the NFL didn't give a fine? No. I think they're trying to save their own ass in this because they're tired of everyone saying that it's been a terribly called season. But no, I think it really changed the outcome of that game, and I think that's why it hurts the most. I just wish the NFL could be consistent with these types of quarterback calls. I think Carson Wentz was not treated the same as other quarterbacks out there. If that was Aaron Rodgers, that would instantly be a penalty. In fact, the player would have been ejected from the game. But mobile quarterbacks are getting this rep where if they're going to be constantly outside the pocket, that they're considered runners constantly. And I think that's not fair. I think the second they give themselves up, that should be the set that that's the marker of when they're no longer to be contact. But regardless of that hit, and obviously what we went through as a team, Carson Wentz was out, and we then had to give up the reins to Josh McCown. Now, Josh McCown, here's the deal. The Eagles weren't going to win the second Carson went out. That was it, all right? Like, the Seahawks obviously were in the driver's seat at that point. Carson was what was keeping that squad of backup players together. So the second I saw Carson out, my heart sank. I was insufferable, really, because I remember my wife was there, and the whole time she said she never seen me more miserable, because I just kept looking at her going, there's no way they can win this now. Carson Wentz is out. That was really the driver of this. The defense might be able to keep it close, but what are we going to get from McCown? McCown played admirably. Coming off the bench, not having a week, because I think a lot of people got lost and they made this comparison, Nick Foles being a backup and playing the game. But don't forget, Nick Foles, when he came in for the LA Rams game, made a couple of good plays once Carson Wentz was knocked out of that game. But Nick Foles still struggled a little bit. He just got the right play to keep us to be able to run the clock off. But Nick Foles didn't play excellently. He played about the same level as McCown. Where Nick Foles then excelled was when he had weeks to prepare. And Josh McCown didn't have that. Josh McCown is over 40 years old. He came out of retirement to be a backup and really just a advisor and mentor to Wentz. And all of a sudden, he's getting told in his first playoff appearance he's ever had to go in the game and replace the star franchise quarterback. That's a tough position for anyone to be put in. And he still went out there, 18 of 24. He had the 75%, obviously, completion rating. Look at my notes. He had also 94.8 rating. But what was killer for Josh McCown is that because the line was missing both Lane Johnson and Brandon Brooks on the right side of the field, you had to rely on Vaitai and Pryor, two unexperienced players to come in on the line. And what we saw was McCown was under pressure a lot. If Wentz is in there, a more mobile quarterback, maybe he gets away from those sacks. But McCown, unfortunately, took 6 sacks in that game. It was brutal to watch the poor guy run around. Clowney, who only had 3 sacks coming into that game, was a menace back there, putting pressure, getting hits, knocking him down. In fact, it got so crazy that at one point McCown got injured. We found out this week McCown ended up playing the second half of that game with a torn hamstring off the bone. But because there are no other quarterbacks behind him besides Greg Ward, the wide receiver and former quarterback for the University of Houston, he had to keep playing. And it's just amazing. I gotta give him credit. The power, the ability for him to come in and play like that, and then to play his heart out with an injury, is amazing. But again, no mobility. So he was being completely harassed back there by the very B-rated kind of defensive line for the Seahawks. They had not gotten pressure all year, but they finally had an offensive line that had a lot of injuries, able to take advantage of that and take advantage of a quarterback that really wasn't used to running around. But again, played well. Dallas Goedert, who I had made a prediction on our friend's show, Authentic in the Beard, I said he would be the key player of that of the game. Still had 7 receptions for 73 yards, not bad. The Eagles' offense in totality had 282 yards of offense and did what I wanted to see, which was have a balanced offensive game plan. I think having McCown in there really forced that, but we saw 26 rushes versus 28 pass attempts. But what killed them in the end, again, one was the mobility of Josh McCown in the game and the weak offensive line. 2, third down efficiency, 3 of 11. You're just not going to really win games if you can't get those first downs. And they really struggled mightily in those pressure situations. And at the end of the game, we had 2 fourth down attempts they had to go for, 0 for 2. It's just not going to win the game. Not to mention 5 red zone drives, maybe 4, because one of them was the 47-yard kick from Elliott, which obviously, not necessarily red zone, we're getting close. We'll say 5 drives, only 3 field goals. If Wentz is in that game, at least 2 of those, I think, in my opinion, because we got down the 10-yard line twice, are touchdowns. Wentz had one of the highest red zone efficiencies in the league this year, and I think that would have really turned around into touchdowns, not just field goals. So we missed out in third down efficiency, red zone efficiency, the mobility of the quarterback. And then again, we had to rely on our defense, which didn't play bad, but gave up a lot of big plays. DK Metcalf had a field day against those cornerbacks. They didn't stand a chance. Wilson was able to get a lot of one-on-one coverage. Mills looked bad again. Maddox couldn't keep up with them. I mean, thank God Darby wasn't in the game. He would have been completely burned throughout that whole game. So Lockett, DK Metcalf were having a good time. Hollister, the tight end, had no problems. And even Marshawn Lynch got in for a touchdown. So the offense for Seattle was clicking in some ways. We lost again the same score we did week 12. The defense held them to 382 yards, but when you have an offense that's now struggling with the Eagles had, it just wasn't enough. I'll give them credit. And it's just shocking because they held them under 400 yards, which I think was definitely a point we need the defense to do. So was enough if Wentz was in there to win. The Seahawks had more penalty yards, and the Eagles had more time possession, yet we still lost. I think it just comes down that the inability to get in the end zone really killed the Eagles. I think McCown did enough to give the Eagles a chance, but really once Wentz went out, that was the game, folks. The script was written, Eagles were out. So unfortunately, we had to see Carson miss again. I just really feel for the guy. People are talking about, soft, he's prone to injury. I don't count it this way. I think Wentz proved he could go a whole season. He did 16 games. He got through the whole season without getting an injury. Concussions are just a part of the game that you can't prepare for. I think Wentz, proved he's durable, but anyone can get knocked down back of the head. Anyone could get that. I think the national media going out, and this has really pissed me off, is going out and saying that Carson Wentz is injury prone because, once again, he wasn't able to complete a postseason game. That's just not true. I know people want to say look at patterns and whatnot, but it's not his fault he got this concussion. Nothing he did could have happened to avoid this. He didn't put himself out there to get nailed in the head. It was a unfortunate hit. It was, in my opinion, a malicious hit, a very unwarranted hit. It definitely warranted a penalty. It warranted at least some type of fine or even suspension for the type of hit on the quarterback if the league is making this whole drive that they're going to protect the quarterback. But no, I don't think Wentz could have done anything about it. Unfortunately, it just happened, and it's one of those things in the game. So I think it was just next season, hopefully we'll get through it again. I think Wentz proven he can do a whole season. So we'll have a great 2020 run. We're going to have a team around him that believes in him, that was able to stand by him, as we saw that kind of happen later in the season. I think the Eagles need to do like the Seahawks, clean out all the Wentz people that aren't fans of him in the locker room. Need to build a cohesive locker room that sees him as a leader and follows him. And we need to work on the defense. We need cornerbacks. We're going to need some cornerback play and some real help there. I think the good first step by the Eagles was obviously replacing Mike Rowe and Carson Walsh, the offensive coordinator and the wide receivers coach. But there's a lot to do. It was a disappointing game. It was a disappointing end of the season. I was proud of them getting there to that point, being NFC East champs with all the injuries. 32 players were on the injury report at least once this season, which is just brutal for any team. So looking forward to 2020. Admirable job again. Good job on the Eagles getting that far and doing that, but it hurt. That hurt. That was a really, really tough game. So that was my thoughts on the Eagles playoff game. Still sad. You can see it in me. I'm sad. It's unfortunate it's over. Wish we were getting ready for the Packers, but that's just not going to be the case. All right, folks. So we have on a special segment, we have a guest on the show, Patrick Sweeney, the host of PS It's All About Sports. He releases a podcast every 2 weeks, usually on Fridays on major platforms. You can stream it on Spotify, YouTube, or iTunes. Also has an amazing website, psitsallaboutsports.com, where he's releasing content almost every day. Some great articles to read. If you really want to learn more about football, college football, NFL draft, anything, the articles are easy to read with great analysis. There's one right now on the NFL draft, so definitely give it a read and give it a listen. Patrick, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's a great honor to be here today.
Oh, no, we are fans of your show, so really it's our honor, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I was very thrilled that you guys reached out to me to be here.
Oh, we cannot wait. So, since it is the NFL playoffs, we are a week removed. This is our first episode back on the ChadBurn show. I have to talk, obviously, last weekend. So last weekend, unfortunately, both our teams were knocked out of the playoffs. My Birds, the Eagles, and, of course, your Patriots. I wanted to get your take on this Patriots loss. It seemed really when they need to muster up some offense that they couldn't get it going against that Titans defense. I want to know from your standpoint as a fan, everything. Do you put more blame on the lack of the production, on the lack of weapons they had at wide receiver and so on, or on Tom Brady himself, which might seem blasphemous, but at this point in his career, maybe it could be on him?
You know, that's a very great question, and I don't think that there's one person I could really put the blame on. As the year has gone on, even in the offseason, I think the organization knew after Gronk retired that they needed to really retool. They drafted N'Keal Harry. They obviously had Josh Gordon. They tried out Antonio Brown for a week, and that didn't pan out. They traded also for Mohamed Sanu, so they really tried to get Tom Brady the weapons. It's just none of these players really blossomed into that guy that could be opposite of Julian Edelman. And I think that's where they struggled a lot on offenses. If you take Julian Edelman out of the equation, what a lot of teams did with their double coverage, no other guy could get separation. So I don't really blame Tom Brady. I think that obviously he did look rusty a lot, but I think there's a lot of mistrust between him and the players that were on the field.
Yeah, well, I mean, that makes sense, and I think a lot of it has to go, like you said, to the players, the weapons. I say coaching too sometimes. I don't know if they could coach up that wide receiver core much more, but you know, I felt bad that Tom Brady didn't have much out there for him.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that statement.
Yeah. So I guess following up on that, so the big news, and everyone's trying to obviously predict, is whether or not Tom Brady leaves New England. So I guess, in your opinion, is he gone? And if so, where does he land?
So I've been doing a lot of research into this because obviously as a Patriots fan, as a Brady fan, I really want to know not only if he's going to want to stay, but if the organization can really afford to keep him. He's looking to try to get a market price for a quarterback, which would probably be $20 to $30 million a year.
For sure.
And with the free agents they have, I mean, a lot of free agents they have are on defense right now. Van Noy is going to be a free agent, McCourty, Jamie Collins. So my question for the organization is, can they be able to afford to keep both Brady and keep this number one ranked defense? I don't know if Belichick is going to be willing to do that. I don't know if Tom Brady should take a pay cut. I mean, with all he's done recently, he's won a few Super Bowls in the past few years. So I think personally they're going to reach an agreement for them to part. And I think that one of the teams that I think really would fit him is the Los Angeles Chargers. I know a lot of talk has been talking about him having ties to LA. They have a really good offensive unit there. They have Mike Williams. They have Keenan Allen. Obviously, they'll have either Austin Eckler or Melvin Gordon. I don't think they'll keep both. and the defense still is pretty solid. So I think that he ends up an LA Charger, sadly. As much as it breaks my heart to say that, I think that's the place for him to go, in my opinion.
Wow, I feel like that would be amazing going from one Phillip Rivers to then Tom Brady. That would be an incredible change for the Chargers.
Yeah, it would be a great change. I think that the organization there in LA is done with Rivers. I mean, he's done a lot for this organization there, but he hasn't won anything. So I think that they are going to try to have that win now mentality and bring in Brady to possibly win within the next year or two.
No, that makes total sense. And do you put any credence to the fact that maybe Bill Belichick wants to prove he can win without Brady?
I think there's that aspect. I mean, I really thought that Belichick was trying to get rid of Brady a few years ago. Obviously, with Jimmy Garoppolo coming in, I thought that he would be the quarterback of the future. But there's been a lot of, I guess, lack of communication within the organization between Robert Kraft, Bill Belichick, Tom Brady. There's been a lot of articles saying that they weren't at their best these past few seasons, communication-wise. So maybe there's that whole aspect. But I could definitely see Belichick trying to win without Brady.
God, I mean, I think it'd be amazing to see if he could do it. I personally believe he could, so that's definitely worth seeing. All right, so Chargers, I like that. That's a great pick for where you could go. Excellent. All right, so then going on to our next question, I wanted to ask this because Eagles fan. I've talked about this in my other segments of the show. It's still fresh in my head, so I need to know about Jadeveon Clowney. Now that we heard he's not going to be fined, that there is no penalty going towards him for that hit on Carson Wentz, I need to know, in your opinion, did that hit, I should say, warrant a penalty, and also was it dirty or not dirty?
So actually, after you brought that up to me, I went back and I reviewed the play. I watched the clip a few times. And if you look at the clip, it's clearly a helmet-to-helmet hit.
Yes.
Regardless of whether he intended to do that or not, I would say a penalty should have been warranted right away. Right. Now, whether it's a dirty or not dirty hit. So when I looked at that clip, it kind of looked like he wasn't trying to hit Carson Wentz in the helmet, but it did look like he tried to hit him once he was trying to slide down.
Right.
So I think although the accidental hit to the helmet is something that he wasn't trying to do, he was trying to get an extra hit on him while he was sliding in the process of going down. So I think it kind of was a dirty hit, a cheap shot. I mean, if you look at that hit, after Carson Wentz went out, I did not see them winning that game. I think obviously McCown played great, but that whole hit changed the whole dimension of that game flow. Yeah. So I would definitely say it was a dirty hit in my opinion.
That's the thing, and I think my point I was keep making is that I don't think Clowney necessarily was dirty and trying to be a dirty player. It's just the nature of that hit, where he's going with it, the fact that Wentz was giving himself up, and that the helmet-to-helmet happened. It falls in the classification of a dirty late hit, and so that's kind of why I was a bit outraged in it. Was he trying to hit helmet? I'm sure it wasn't purposeful, but he clearly was trying to hit Wentz while he's down there.
Yeah, definitely. And again, I think it's also the angle of the play. A lot of those times when you see the helmet-to-helmet, it's the defender coming straight on with the player. This one, it was kind of weird. He was coming from behind, but still, he leant down a little bit. So I think he definitely was trying to hit Carson Wentz further after the play.
All right. Well, league is not going to fine him, so I guess that's that. All the Eagles fans can do is continue to stew and get mad till next season when we play him again. So that will be kind of how it goes. Hopefully we get a rematch and can stick it to Clowney, so we'll see. All right, so since this will be published on Sunday, we won't really go through, obviously, the Saturday matchups since those will already have finished. So I want to go on and get your predictions for the Sunday games. First up, obviously, Texans versus Chiefs. Who do you have, and what's your final score?
All right, so I am all in on the Chiefs this year, and I've been looking at this team these past few weeks. They've been on a 6-game winning streak. Now, I pulled up some stats because I'm a stat guy here.
Yeah,
and if you look at this defense, man, they're only letting up 11.5 points per game in this 6-game winning streak. They gave up only about 315 yards per game, and they forced 11 turnovers. So I think that this defense is hitting their stride at the right point. Obviously, we know Mahomes, they have the weapons on the offense, but I don't think Deshaun Watson showed me enough last week against the Bills to where I could be comfortable picking them this game. So for those reasons, I'm going to go with the Chiefs here in a 30-17 victory.
Wow, I could see that. The Chiefs definitely, the defense has hit their stride late. I remember, I think we're talking the first half of the season, everyone was talking about how the Chiefs had no defense. Their cornerbacks couldn't stop a lick. So it's nice to see that that's turned around, especially for Andy Reid, because I think he's always been offense first, so it's nice to see that defense come around.
Yeah, it was crazy. I was looking at the first half of the year. They had like 4 games where they lit up 400 or more yards. And in the second half, they didn't do that once, I think. So that's definitely a big improvement.
I think it'll be great. Let's see if the Texans get rolling. I think for me, I'm going to probably lean towards the Chiefs as well. I think that the Texans have some weapons, but like we saw last week, they struggled against another good defense. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I was going to see, do you have a final score for the game or...
I'm gonna say our prediction for later, but I will. I'll tell you now. I'm taking Chiefs, but I think it'll be. I'm gonna see how high it goes. The over/under was pretty high on that game, so I think it was in the 49 to 50 range. So I think it could be somewhere in that total score. So I think that was a good call on your point. So I'll go then the next one, and it's in the NFC. The team that beat my Birds, the Seahawks versus Packers, go into Lambeau Field. Who do you got in this one?
So this game, I think, is probably going to be the closest game of the weekend. I honestly kept going back and forth, and I really think this is going to be a field goal game. So I was looking at both of these teams. So the Seahawks, they are 10-2 in one-score games, and the Packers are 8-1 in one-score games. So right there, that just tells me that this is going to be a very close contest. I did not like what I saw from the Seahawks this week. I thought your Eagles really should have beaten that team. So I think going into Lambeau, it's going to be very difficult. I think that the defensive line for the Packers, Zadarius Smith and Preston Smith, they have been very good these past few games down the stretch of the season. I think they get a lot of pressure on Russell Wilson, and they force him to have a turnover or two. I think the Packers win a 23-20 game.
Nice. So real close, like you said, final field goal. Do you think it's going to be a last-minute drive down the field, Aaron Rodgers setting it up for a field goal win?
Yeah, definitely. I think that Rodgers is going to really turn to Davante Adams this year. I think they turn him loose. I don't know if anyone in the secondary of the Seahawks can really cover Davante Adams. So if they can hold up on the offensive line, the Packers, I think that we could see Adams having maybe 9 to 10 catches this game.
Yeah, well, again, like we saw Clowney come alive last week against the Eagles, and he only had 3 sacks going into that game. Maybe the Seahawks can get some pressure, but again, I think if the Packers keep that run game going, that's going to keep them on their heels, and that's going to be a problem for the Seahawks defense.
Yeah, definitely. I couldn't agree more.
Got it. Well, Patrick, I got to say, thank you so much for coming on the show. This has been an absolute pleasure. We got your picks. Obviously, we have the Chiefs you have in the first window on Sunday, and then Packers winning it in the second half of the day. We are going to hold you to that, as always. We're going to try and talk. I will be revealing my scores later in the show, see if we have something similar. But again, thank you so much for all your insights. It's been amazing to get it on, or talk about Patriots last week and talk about the games coming up. So really, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I really appreciated it, and I look forward to doing this in the future with you guys as well.
Absolutely. That's what I mean. Let's continue to collaborate, and we'll have you on later on for sure.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Patrick. That was, again, Patrick Sweeney of PS It's All About Sports. Make sure you go to his website, PSIt'sAllAboutSports.com, to check on interesting articles every day, and always to check in to see when their new podcast is out. It's always a great read and a great show. So really make sure to go check out PS It's All About Sports.
Thank you again.
Thank you. Oh, well, I just want to say it was a fun interview to do with PS All About Sports. I really want to thank him again for giving us some time to come on the show and talk about the playoffs and his thoughts on coming up for the upcoming matchups. Really, just it was a pleasure to have him on, so I really want to thank him. That was just a great segment, and hopefully we can continue to do that. Maybe as playoffs go on, maybe we'll have him again on to talk about next week, or as the season goes on, or even the NFL draft. He's been writing some great stuff on the NFL draft, so love to get his thoughts as we get closer there. Maybe see who he thinks the Eagles may land at the wide receiver position, because I need some wide receivers. I need some cornerbacks. We need some retooling there. But then following up, since we just got PS All About Sports picks of the weekend. Like I said, we are obviously going to post this on Sunday, but I thought it might be fun to do a little. I'll talk about Saturday, so you guys can all see if I was correct when you listen to it on the Saturday predictions. The two games we have obviously today, we're recording on Saturday, posting Sunday. The two games today are obviously Vikings versus 49ers and the Titans versus the Ravens. Vikings 49ers, interesting matchup. Vikings had a hell of a game coming back against this against New Orleans Saints. Sorry, obviously blanked on that team name. Vikings had a great game. The overtime win was awesome. Was it a push or not for the touchdown? I think it was kind of a push. His arm was extended. That was definitely the call that should have been made. So NFL missed a lot of calls during that playoff weekend, from whether it was the Seattle Viking game or obviously the Eagles with a hit from Jadeveon Clowney. But the Vikings still won. They made a good drive. They stuck with the Saints, and their defense held them. So I think what proved to me is that this Vikings defense might actually be able to do something, might be able to keep them in the game. And, Cousins can actually throw the ball. We've seen all season that this has been a run-first offense, the Vikings, but maybe what we're seeing right now is Cousins can put together some drives throwing the ball. So I think they saw Diggs was getting so pissed with silence, throwing his helmet, getting mad he's not getting targeted, finally getting targeted at the end of the game. So I think with Thielen healthy, Diggs healthy, they have an actual vertical attack they can work on. If Dalvin Cook is healthy, which he is going to be, then that's also another weapon they have. Taking on the 49ers that are rested, we'll have a full game strategy for this. We know Shanahan is a great coach. He's going to have this team prepared to take on the Vikings. Will Jimmy G be able to pull it together? I think really, besides Sanders and Kittle, he doesn't have much weapons. It's going to be a running game with Mostert and then maybe throwing in some Coleman. But I think it's going to both the offenses are very similar with the Vikings and the 49ers, where you haven't really relied on the passing game that much. It's been much more rush oriented, but you have had some sparks here and there where the quarterbacks have proven they can win the game on their arm when they need to. So I think the offense is very evenly matched. What will be the X factor in deciding in this game is going to be defense. Will the 49ers defense that is so stout, been playing so well, been one of the top defenses in the league, will they be able to basically shut down the run game and force Cousins to throw the ball? I think what we'll see is the 49ers defense will be the key to this game. I think the Vikings defense will be able to keep the Vikings close, but in the end, there is going to be points scored by the 49ers defense, and that's going to be really what puts it over the edge. So I have a pick of 24-21. I still keep it close, but I pick the 49ers in that one. The next one, Titans versus Ravens. Titans making the huge upset against New England Patriots. I say huge just because we expect in the playoffs for the Patriots to always find a way to win. They did not. And Derrick Henry, my man, going off for over 180 yards. It was incredible. The Titans basically looked at the Patriots and said, you have a great defense, but guess what? We're going to run the ball. We're giving it to Henry, and we're going straight up your throat. It was amazing. Right up the A-gap every time. They didn't care, and Henry was just beating them. Also got a reception touchdown. He was just everywhere. So will the Ravens defense, which is also a stellar AFC defense, be able to stop the Derrick Henry machine that we're seeing? I think so. I think they're going to put 8 in the box. I think they're going to, again, put it on Ryan Tannehill, similar to what we're talking about with the Vikings 49ers. I think the Ravens will put it on Tannehill to prove that he can throw the ball and get it to A.J. Brown, get it to Corey Davis, prove that he has can throw the ball down. But if the Ravens cannot contain Derrick Henry, then this game will be like the Patriots and get close. The next question is, Titans have had a decent defense. Can you stop Lamar Jackson on the role he has right now? Mark Ingram, Lamar Jackson, the weapons downfield with Brown, so on. That's going to be a real task. Whereas the Titans might be able to expose and take advantage of the Ravens defense if Henry gets going. I don't think they're going to put up enough points to even stay close with the Ravens. I'd say it's going to be at least a touchdown difference. I'm giving it a 28-21 Ravens pick. So we will see when this airs tomorrow if I am right, but hopefully we will see both the 49ers and Ravens advance. To the Sunday matchup, Texans versus Chiefs. Gonna go Chiefs this one. I think as you heard from what I was saying before with PS It's All About Sports with Patrick, I think Patrick made a really good point about the Chiefs defense being really good. It's a lot better than we saw early in the season. So I won't waste too much time since we talked about it earlier. My score on that one is Chiefs win 27-17. I think they really closed out and the Texans just don't have enough weapons to compete. And finally, Seahawks versus Packers. We heard Patrick's pick going with Packers. I am actually going to go the other way. I do think Packers are great in Lambeau, but I think the Seahawks win it 21-17. I like the way Russell Wilson plays. I think he's going to figure out a way to win this one. I think their defense does somehow contain Devontae Adams in the run game, and Aaron Rodgers is not able to pull it out on his own. So we have heard a lot of the analysis from Patrick. I'm just going to say my score of 21-17. We will see how it goes. So I have Chiefs and Seahawks advancing in that Sunday window. So those are my predictions for the playoffs. I think it's going to be great. I think we've got some great matchups. We've got some young talent. It's amazing to not see the Patriots in the end there. It's amazing not to see some of the typical teams we see move on. I was sad to not see the Bills advance. I thought that would have been a very fun young team to go on. But in the end, this is what we have. So let's see what we got. My prediction still for the Super Bowl was going to be Ravens versus Saints. Clearly, Saints are gone, so let's see who fills that void now. Good one. Now, before we end the show, we usually do a recurring segment called the ChadBurn Burn List. Because it's the end of the Eagles season, I thought I would just do a little quick end of season speech to them rather than going on to our burn list. The burn list will be back. That will be obviously in our next episode, but I needed to do a little send off to our birds and let them know how I felt as we move on into the 2020 season. So as I get ready to prepare for our birds. Hi there, Eagles. Don't be scared. Come on in. No one is going to hurt you, unlike this season where 32 players made the injury report at least once. No, this is a safe place. I want to take some time and let you know that you did a great job this season. Sure, there were times where I thought you were nothing more than a two-bit hack job of a team, and sure, I once said that your performance was a joke. But you know what? I stuck with you. Like a bad relationship where we as fans continue to call you up at all hours screaming and yelling and you ghosted us several times just looking for some space to retool and find your identity. Remember that Miami game or the first game against Dallas? Those sure were some dark days. But hey, we also had some fun. Whether it was beating every NFC East team or sticking it to Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay on Thursday night, we were there to scream our heads off in support and watch you march in a triumphant victory. Not to mention, your playoff run at the end was one we will all remember. For the incredible clutch performances of Carson Wentz, I think we all saw the potential again for this team and the franchise quarterback at the helm. Now, that is not to say there weren't some coaching inefficiencies, and that defensive secondary has more holes than Jeffrey Epstein's death. But in the end, you gave this fan base hope, and I want to thank you for that. I look forward to what the 2020 season will bring us. We still were NFC East champs and have an opportunity to be the first to repeat in a decade. Let's stand by Howie and what he said and look to retool with a younger talent. Unfortunately, I gotta say, sorry, Jason Peters. It's not you, it's me. We just need someone younger to get us feeling alive again. To the future, and all that will come with it, I'm sure we can make a run, and with a healthy 2020 team and a proven Carson Wentz, anything is possible. Go Birds, and congratulations on a great 2019 run. So with that, folks, we are going to call it end of the show. I want to thank you all for joining us and listening in. We hope this is a wonderful start to the 2020 season and the rest of the show that we will have throughout this year. We are now moving away from football. We'll continue to talk about the playoffs, but we are going to start transitioning into basketball and the 76ers, talking a little more about that. But again, send off to the Eagles, a great 2019 campaign. Looking forward to everything we have in 2020. I want to wish everyone that they had a wonderful holiday, a wonderful new year. Listening to the show. As always, you can email me if you have any questions or like to talk about the show at chadburn.show@gmail.com. You can also DM me on Instagram at chadburnshow. If you like what you listen to, make sure to give us a follow on Instagram to keep up to date with what we're doing and clips throughout the week from our previous shows. You can also check us out on YouTube with the ChadBurn Show. Subscribe there for all the most recent episodes. And you can listen to us on Spotify, iTunes, Google, anywhere you can listen to your podcast. You can listen to the ChadBurn Show. Make sure to give us a follow and click a like if you like to learn more about what we're doing every week. We'll be back next week. See how the playoffs go and our predictions. And I hope, as always, everyone had a wonderful time and everyone has a good evening. Good night, guys.